be if, some of the worst people on the planet are people who shoot off fireworks before July 4th.
You don't like those people?
They are not as bad as people who shoot off fireworks after July 4th. But wait till July 4th to shoot off fireworks. It's just drives me nuts. But there were metaphorical fireworks.
Yes.
This time last year, 1 year ago today, July 1st, 2024, when the Predators spent a boatload of cash on Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, and Brady Shea. And I thought it would be entertaining to take a look back to 1 year ago today and hear what some NHL analysts were saying about the Predators' free agent haul. Nick Frazier, if you please.
Which team improved themselves the most on day one of free agency, Luke?
Gotta like what the Nashville Predators went and got done today. Steven Stamkos, Brady Shea on the back end, and notably as well, Jonathan Marchessault heading over from the Las Vegas Golden Knights. These are some huge moves. They shore up their goaltending with the backup in Scott Wedgwood to play some games behind UC Saros. But Marchessault, for me, is the guy that comes over, scoring 42 last year. You bring in a veteran goal scorer with Stanley Cup pedigree, Conn Smythe winner, to add some offense to your lineup, dynamite on the power play. This is a win-win for the Nashville Predators for me. I thought they did well today.
Yeah, and Brady Shea, like we see what Carolina's had forever. They've got, this decor that everyone kind of admired and marveled at, especially with the way they play. But him coming over as well, that's just huge. When you look at Yossi back there and the players that they have, the way they move and compete, I think this is huge. This has been a massive day for them.
How does this team stack up with some of the big boys out in the Western?
Well, they're in a very tough division, so that's a challenge, right? Because you still got Colorado there, who's going to be up there. Dallas is still very, very good, but they're going to be in that battle now. There's no question. Winnipeg had a really good year last year. They were there was the big three, but I think Tony, for me, I look at it again on paper. It looks like this is a team that's going to challenge maybe to win that division.
Barry Trotz said he wanted to show his players that they were in it to win it. Is Nashville, in your mind, Frankie, the clear winner of free agent frenzy?
Big time. And last year, Jay, if we go back there, Nashville did a really good job at value shopping. Like they signed their first line center in Ryan O'Reilly for $4.5 million. They ended up signing Gus Nyquist to a 2-year deal at $3.16. So they had, both those players playing on their first line, making a combined $7.6 million. That's really good value. They've taken that value, and this year they opened up the piggy bank, and basically they're just going to try and capture the momentum that they had from last year where they made the playoffs. Goals were a little harder to come by in the first round against the Vancouver Canucks. So you add two players that are going to give you a lot of offensive pop. Yes, Stamkos still has game. Jonathan Marchessault, great shooter, Conn Smythe winner. Really like it from their point of view. Power play should be really good for Nashville this year. And not to mention, you had Brady Shea on the back end. Yes, Ryan McDonough is a different type of player. He moves on. Brady Shea, a lot of offense there. So you can really see what Nashville was trying to do. They were trying to add offense. They opened the piggy bank to do so. A little bit different than last year where they found the value. This year, the money was flowing out of Smashville.
If only they knew, Derek Mason.
What was awaiting them?
If only they knew. But that was just a sample of what NHL analysts were saying 1 year ago today when the Predators maxed out their credit card on the top free agents on the board. I don't think you should expect that today. By the way, I found this to be interesting. According to Sportsnet stats, most money spent on UFAs on July 1st, 2024. The Predators, $122.75 million. Followed by the Kraken, Bruins, Blackhawks, Devils, and Canucks. 5 of those 6 teams failed to make the playoffs. So, as we learned, winning the offseason doesn't always equate to winning when it matters. But I thought it would be interesting to listen to what people had to say about what the Predators did in free agency. Again, if only they knew, Derek, what would ultimately be coming.
Yeah, if we all knew, I think everyone was, felt this sentiment in some way, in regards to the Predators and what they were doing in free agency. They might have been the most aggressive team out there last offseason. And frankly, they needed it. Now, hindsight is 2020, and maybe, getting guys that shoot on us, what are they? Right-hand shots. All of them are right-hand shots. In retrospect, you think maybe you shouldn't have done that. Maybe you should have gotten 2 instead of the 3, or even went for 1, and chose to sign people that probably fit better with your team. So, it was a swing. In a miss last year, they struck out 3 swings: Marchessault, Stamkos, and Brady Shea. Even though Marchessault he had his moments. It wasn't all a waste. He had his moments last year, but the other 2, I mean, they didn't give you much of anything. So it was 3 strikes last year, and they're out, and they can't afford to do it again this season, even with those guys coming back another year. All 3 of those guys, they have to have, the production has to be better than they were last year.
Hair Metal Henry on our text line, reacting to our July 1st, 2024 time capsule, says, that was painful to listen to. Should have just kicked myself in the balls. I mean,
is that a Bart Simpson's episode? No, it was Beavis and Butthead. Do y'all remember Beavis and Butthead?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I was just making sure, man. Just making sure. I didn't know. I don't even think you were born, Frazier, when they came out. Were you?
Nah, I don't believe so.
Nah,
I think
you were, Emily.
Yeah, I was born in the 90s, late 90s. So
yeah.
Beavis and Butthead debuted in 1993.
So it's right around the time you were born. Well, some years before.
I can't say I've watched a lot of Beavis and Butthead,
but that
I am very familiar with that. Beavis and Butthead.
Yes.
But Hair Metal Henry, I think, speaking for a lot of Predators fans today, hearing about how great things were 1 year ago, or so we thought. But we will keep you posted on any and all free agent moves that are made by the Nashville Predators today, as well as any other major moves in the NHL. But again, a lot of the primetime players, you could say, off the board. Just to give you a sense of who is left, the number 1 free agent left on the board is a winger out of Winnipeg named Nikolai Ehlers. Now, I am a big fan of Nikolai Ehlers, but I would say most casual fans are unfamiliar with Nikolai Ehlers. But here is someone who Predators fans are familiar with. The top remaining center on the free agent market, our good friend, Mikael Granlund. So that may speak to the dearth of viable options in free agency right now. By the way, does the Mikael Granlund rule apply to Mikael Granlund if the Predators re-signed Mikael Granlund? Question for Jared. So we will keep you up to date on all of that. Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst, easy for me to say, will join us in the next segment. But I do want to get a bit of football in here before we get to Tim. So yesterday, there was a major trade in the NFL between the Miami Dolphins and Pittsburgh Steelers. Jonnu Smith leaves Miami as part of the deal, which also involved Jalen Ramsey and Minka Fitzpatrick. Mm-hmm. So the Dolphins, they need a tight end. And you and I were just chatting during one of the breaks. Hey, how about Chigakonkwo? Maybe the Dolphins are so desperate for a tight end, they'll give you something of value for Chigakonkwo. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not going to happen because the Miami Dolphins have acquired Darren Waller. And if you might have forgotten, Darren Waller retired a couple of years ago, but was still part of the Giants organization. So the Miami Dolphins are trading a 6th-round pick, a 2026 6th-round pick, to the Giants, who held Waller's rights in exchange for Waller and a conditional 2027 7th-round pick. And Waller, who's in his early 30s, was one of the league's best tight ends 4 or 5 years ago for the Las Vegas Raiders. But then he went to the Giants and then retired. Mm-hmm. So he's coming out of retirement to join the Dolphins. Before the show, you were not a fan of this move.
No, and listen, Darren Waller has been through a lot, and it's great that, he's overcome, his demons. So you got to applaud him for that. But it's hard for me, and maybe this was because of what he was dealing with, the addiction. And he said he just lost love for the game. He didn't want to play, and that's why he retired. So maybe it could have been, a contributing factor to why he lost the love for the game. But even with that being said, once a guy tells you it's the passion is gone, it's faded, especially in a game of football, because it takes so much to get you there. Like, even to get you going for a Sunday game, man, you can't afford to waste any of that on anything else. And if you don't have it, it's hard to manufacture it. And he said he lost the passion for the game. I don't know how much the Dolphins are going to be looking for him to contribute, because before all that, yeah, he was a hell of a player. He was a really good player. He was sort of in the mode of what the tight ends are at now. Versatile, line him up at wide receiver, tight end. He's a matchup problem. He can run, he can catch, he can do everything from a tight end position you want him to do today's. But again, when you lose that one edge, I'm not sure if I'm a GM that I'm going to venture down that road. I will let somebody else do it for a year, because essentially this is just a 1-year contract. I'll let somebody else do it for a year, because the Dolphins aren't, if I'm in the Dolphins position, the Dolphins aren't a player away, from going to the Super Bowl. Hell, they should have kept Jonnu Smith, but maybe it had soured and he was ready to go anyway. So I just look at it from this standpoint: a desperate team making desperate moves on a player that has lost his passion to play the game. It's hard for me to say, oh, now you're going to give it. What if you lose the passion again during the season? You may play it out, but it's still not there. In this game where the margins are so close, that's something that I don't need to be worried about. Because now I got to always monitor you. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? And there's nothing wrong. I get it. But again, in a sport where the separation is like inches, you got to have everything going your way. You can't have anything that possibly can detract from your team, especially something like that.
So Waller, in 2019 and 2020, combined for 197 receptions for 2,341 receiving yards and 12 touchdowns. The Raiders signed him to a 3-year deal. They traded him to the Giants. He played 1 season in New York before retiring. So one texter, let's see, Chip from Mount Juliet says Waller was always hurt, not motivated toward the end. Brandy says, come on, D-Mace, it's a comeback story. He is going to be great. That's just the story Dolphins fans are telling themselves. One texter says there was an episode of King of the Hill where Hank's son Bobby went around kicking guys in the groin.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike Judge did create King of the Hill, and he either helped create or did create, I can't remember his role in it, Beavis and Butthead. So there is some symmetry between Beavis and Butthead kicking people in the groin and Bobby Hill kicking people in the groin. It's always a
tentacle.
Right. So,
hey, Dad, need an extra set of hands?
That is not a toy. It's for lying down on. Ah, oh, dang it, Bobby. I'm going to kick your ass. See? Pop.
But that's how Predators fans feel today after hearing our little mashup of July 1st, 2024. So
somebody down.
Absolutely. But so far, nothing on the Predators front now that the free agent market has been open for roughly 20 minutes. Again, we will bring you any and all updates involving the Nashville Predators in free agency now that the market is open. But again, a lot of the biggest names on the board are already taken. So not sure how much of a frenzy we're going to get today. Don't expect those metaphorical fireworks again for the Predators in free agency. 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Also, if there are players who are still available in free agency that you, Predators fans, would like to see the Predators go after, let us know on our text line, 615-737-1025. But coming up next, Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst, will join us. We'll talk NFL, we'll talk Titans. We'll do it all with Tim Hasselbeck. Coming up next, 615-737-1025. This week's Nashville's best deal is Tzatziki's. Craving something fresh and flavorful? Tzatziki's has you covered. From juicy chicken kebabs to perfectly grilled salmon, every bite is bursting with Mediterranean goodness, and don't even get us started on the homemade sauces and dressing. Get half off a $25 gift card now while supplies last at thegamenashville.com/deals. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063. The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, Nick Frazier here with you. Efforting ESPN NFL analyst Tim Hasselbeck. We hope to get Tim on the line here soon. But Derek, I want to touch on an NHL draft adjacent topic. So yesterday we discussed the presentation of the NHL draft on ESPN. We had some thoughts. Most of them were negative.
Yes.
But one of the things that the NHL did with this decentralized draft is they had celebrity pickers for well-known athletes, personalities and such who were affiliated with the team or from the hometown, for example. They had them make the selections. For example, with the number 2 pick in the NHL draft, belonging to the San Jose Sharks, WWE superstar Bailey, who is from San Jose, California, made the pick. Nikki Glazer, who I did not know is from St. Louis, made the St. Louis Blues selection at number 19.
So there's ties.
Yes.
Okay.
Adam Sandler, who, of course, Happy Gilmore, famously wore a Boston Bruins jersey.
Exactly.
Adam Sandler announced the Bruins selection of James Higgins. The Predators, the Predators. The Predators had 3 first-round picks, one announced by Shea Weber, one announced by country artist Jordan Davis, and one announced by this man.
What's up, guys? Very honored to be a part of the NHL draft. Thank you so much for having me. I just want to give a quick shout out to the number 1 Preds fan in the entire world, Felix Forsberg. You're going to love this guy, Felix. I can't wait for it. So just want to say, with the 21st pick in the 2025 NHL draft, the Nashville Predators select Cameron Reed from the Kitchener Rangers. What a beauty. Thanks, guys.
That was George Kittle, San Francisco 49ers tight end, not quarterback, tight end. Makes his home here in Nashville during the offseason. Tight end U, right around the corner. Well, maybe not literally right around the corner, but in our wonderful town.
Yes.
Tight end U. And I saw this tweet from Gentry Estes of the Tennessean. Quote, does anyone else think it's strange that the NFL player who is most commonly associated with Nashville's NHL team, enough to be selected to announce the Preds pick during the first round of the draft, plays for the 49ers, not the Titans? And this also crossed my timeline. I want to give Jared a shout out for pointing this out. Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk posted a story on June 29th with the headline is Brian Callahan on the hot seat in 2025. Again, not, we've had that conversation, but it was the beginning of his story that made me laugh. Quote, I was talking to my son last night about the recent PFT list of the 5 hottest coaching seats. Said my son, is Brian Callahan on it? End quote. Said I, crap, but not crap. Another word that begins with an S. So combined with those two things combined, the fact that George Kittle, who does not play for the Tennessee Titans, made the announcement of one of the Predators' first-round picks, plus the fact that Mike Florio, one of the most well-known NFL reporters out there, forgot that Brian Callahan should have been on his list of coaches on the hot seat, leads me to this question. Are the Tennessee Titans the NFL's most anonymous franchise?
Oh, man. Whew. They are one of them. Let's say that. And it seems like the only reason they have gotten, sort of the attention is because they've been so bad. But Nashville, the Titans have never been like a national story, on a consistent basis. Now, even with Vrabel, even when they had that nice run, it still seemed like they were not the team that people were talking about, even though they were a damn good team and a well-coached team. So I guess it just adds to what was already there. When you talk about the Tennessee Titans and how, from a national standpoint, they are talked about or thought of You had to talk about it a few years ago because they had arguably the best runner of the football that I've ever seen in the National Football League. So you had to give attention to Derrick Henry. And, some of the other players that they had, whether it was Kevin Byard because of what he was doing, even Jeffrey Simmons at one point. But now they've fallen, whatever pedestal Vrabel had them on, they've completely shattered it. That thing's knocked down, and they are at the bottom of the bottom right now. And they're hoping Cam Ward can lift them up from where they are. But, yeah, I'm not surprised. Frankly, it would have been nice that his son didn't mention Coach Brian Callahan, because we would have read the story and then thought, well, maybe, from a national standpoint, they think of him a different way.
One texter says, who the hell is Felix Forsberg? That would be Philip Forsberg's infant son. So that is who George Kittle was referencing in that clip, Philip Forsberg's son, because George Kittle and Philip Forsberg are they're best friends, I would say.
Yeah, but
my point is,
yes,
to Gentry's point in that tweet, the fact that the NFL, that we have an NFL team and there isn't a player on the Tennessee Titans right now that is even somewhat associated with the franchise. I mean, Cam Ward is the obvious choice, but what was all of the talk after the NFL draft? Cam Ward is the least talked about #1 overall pick in NFL draft history, or in recent NFL draft history. So it would have been cool if maybe Cam Ward would have made one of the picks, but he's focused on throwing that football.
He's focused on ball
and prepping for his docuseries. I just had to throw that in there before somebody else did. But it just that tweet from Gentry again, quote, does anyone else think it's strange that the NFL player who is most commonly associated with Nashville's NHL team, enough to be selected to announce the Preds pick during the first round of the draft, plays for the 49ers and not the Titans? Couple that with Mike Florio forgetting Brian Callahan on a list. Not like this isn't like oh, should I put Brian Callahan on this list? I don't think so. And then his son being like, why didn't you put Brian Callahan on this list? It certainly sounds like Mike Florio legitimately forgot about Brian Callahan.
He probably did. And for Brian Callahan, that's probably good. I wouldn't have wanted to make that list.
But you see my point.
Yes, I see your point clearly. I'm wondering, and now, listen, the Predators probably went to, one of the guys said, who would you like to have? And who's he's best friends with Yossi, right?
Who's that?
Kittles. He's best friends
Forsberg.
with Forsberg, yeah. And maybe they asked Forsberg, like, hey, you got somebody else that would love to do this? And he probably said, Kittles. And that's how it happened. Because my first thought, honestly, if I'm thinking about the Nashville Predators and a player that's closely connected, I'm thinking Taylor Lewan. That's what I'm thinking.
Joey from Bellevue said Taylor Lewan should have announced the draft pick. He is always at the games.
Exactly. He supports the Nashville Predators, and he's ripped. He's down he chugged the beer and threw the catfish. He's done everything that you would want a diehard true fan to do. So I wonder, why didn't they pick Taylor Lewan to do it? Because to me, that's the obvious choice. Because to me, he relates so closely with the team from a non-hockey standpoint.
Joel says, because Kittle is actually a Preds fan. Cam Ward is not, as far as I know. And that is true. George Kittle is a big-time Predators fan. One of my favorite stories in my previous job during COVID, I wrote a story with the headline, why does George Kittle like Philip Forsberg so much? Because around that time, I was seeing George Kittle tweet a lot about Philip Forsberg. And I'm like, what's the connection here? Like, they don't play in the same town. I can't imagine they've crossed paths. But here was the best part. George Kittle's DMs were open. So I messaged him, introduced myself, said, hey, I would love to write a story. He's like, yeah, man, call me up. So I just called George Kittle on the phone. And he loves Philip Forsberg, and he is indeed a big Predators fan. I just think it's interesting that at the moment there isn't a player on the Tennessee Titans that is commonly associated It reminds me of this before we go to break.
Mhm.
It reminds me of during Super Bowl Radio Row week,
Mhm.
I believe Myles Garrett, who at the time wanted out of Cleveland, was going around to every major radio television program on Radio Row and doing an interview. And I believe it was with CBS Sports HQ.
Mhm.
And they were playing this sort of logo association game where the host says, I'm going to show you an NFL logo and I want you to tell me the first player that comes to mind. So Steelers, got it right away. Jets, got it right away. Giants, got it right away. Ravens, got it right away. Titans, crickets, 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 crickets. And I think he even apologized. He's like, sorry, Titans fans. Like, he could not name a Titans player off the top of his head, a player in the NFL, one of the top players in the NFL. So that's my question to all of you at 615-737-1025. With George Kittle being the one to announce one of the Predators' draft picks, an NFL player, the NFL player most associated, as Gentry Estes says, the NFL player most associated with Nashville's NHL team is someone who doesn't even play for the Tennessee Titans. Couple that with Mike Florio legitimately forgetting about Brian Callahan. Are the Titans the NFL's most anonymous franchise? And if not, who would you nominate? Which team? 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. One quick NHL free agent note. Arguably the top winger left on the board, Brock Besser, has re-signed with the Vancouver Canucks, a 7-year contract with a $7.25 million cap hit. So Predators fans hoping for Brock Besser, sorry about it. 615-737-1025. Are the Titans the NFL's most anonymous franchise? Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, the game. Steve Mace, Fingen and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan. We will table our Titans conversation, at least the one that we were having before the break, on if the Titans are the most anonymous franchise in the NFL. We will get back to that, but we are joined on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, by ESPN NFL analyst and head coach of the Ensworth Tigers, Tim Hasselbeck. Tim, we talked yesterday about this major trade between the Miami Dolphins and Pittsburgh Steelers. And it does feel like a very un-Steeler-like offseason when you consider the major moves that organization has made. Of course, bringing in Aaron Rodgers. Now they bring in Jalen Ramsey. They brought in DK Metcalf. Feels like they're going all in, knowing that this may be their best shot for a little while to challenge for a Super Bowl title. With all of these moves that the Steelers have made, do you see a team that can legitimately challenge for a championship?
I think they have a better chance than before this offseason started. So, look, they don't have in the AFC, they don't have Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, and they don't, I don't think they're as strong of a roster as Kansas City, Buffalo, or Baltimore. But, if you can get into the playoffs and, we know that people get hurt, and if you, catch a team when they're a little banged up and you get hot at the right time, then you have a chance. And I think that, as we sit here, on July 1st, they have a better chance now than they did, on February 1st. And look, not everybody's at your disposal, but I do think the fact that they, they moved on from the two quarterbacks that they had last year, decided to go with Aaron Rodgers. The fact that, they seem to, as you said, like make un-Steelers, kind of like moves in terms of the trade we saw yesterday. I think they feel like, especially since, Mike Tomlin, while he's, been really good in the regular season, it's been a while since they've had postseason success. And so there's probably a little bit of pressure, on him and the rest of the coaches, there in Pittsburgh to have some postseason success. And it feels like, these are big moves to try to make that happen.
This NFLPA collusion grievance that came out about a week ago, I would say, it feels like it really isn't grabbing as much attention as I thought it would. Mike Florio is screaming into the void, hoping that people will listen and take notice of what this arbitrator found. Although the arbitrator sided with the NFL, the arbitrator did find as well that the NFL encouraged teams to collude collude regarding guaranteed contracts. So your thoughts, big deal, little deal, or no deal? This collusion
I think it's
grievance.
a big deal. I think it's a big deal if one of the players that, was, harmed by it, if one of those players, and so, and for perspective, a player that would have been harmed by it would be a franchise quarterback, an elite edge rusher, somebody that was due to be guaranteed a whole bunch of money. So I forget the contracts that were up at the time, but I think Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, maybe it's a starting quarterbacks that you're talking about. I think Lamar Jackson's probably in that mix. So I think it's a big deal if one of those guys files a lawsuit because, look, basically, I'm sure you guys talked about it, right? Like, Deshaun Watson gets all kinds of money guaranteed in what was a terrible contract. It was going to reset the market. And what feels like happened was the owners were like, hey, man, like, stop doing that. Don't do that. And, there's 32 different businesses. They're not one business. There's 32 different businesses. So, look, I think it's a big deal because it's, in effect, restricting the way that guys were making money when the market was going to dictate that they get more guaranteed money. So I think it's a very big deal, but it's only a big deal if one of those big name players decides to put his name on it. It's no different than, I think I believe it was in the last lockout that, the thing the NFLPA did a good job of was they put Brady and Breeze's name on the top of the lawsuit, right? And so, when you get big name players involved in it, then it'll start to grab, the headline.
Tim, should the Dolphins fans be concerned with what's being said about their team? You have Raheem Mostert, who said something negative about the team. You've had former safety Deshaun Elliott, linebacker Jordan Brooks, who's still on the team, I believe, have questioned Miami's toughness. With McDaniel being there, will this hamper him in any way? And should the fans be concerned that this is going to be another Dolphins team that falls far underneath what they expect?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a tough conference. I do think expectations are a little unrealistic there in Miami, just because of the fact that the Bills are in their conference, their division, and then the rest of their conference is tough. Look, I think McDaniel has exceeded expectations. Like, he got there and people were like, I don't know, do they have their quarterback of the future? And then, a couple of years later, he leads the league in passing. So look, are they a perfect team? No, but I will say, if there are a few coaches that I think are really good at diffusing, disgruntled player comments, right? Like, I think Andy Reid does an amazing job of it. I mean, like, Travis Kelce pushes him on the sideline, and it's like, yeah, nothing to see here, right? Like, I think there are some coaches that, Pete Carroll, same way. Somebody will say something, and Pete Carroll will find a way to laugh it off. I think Mike McDaniel's the same way. So, my guess is he does a good job of handling things internally. I think he relates well to the players. And I think any kind of outside comments about the team, he'll do a good job of diffusing it publicly. As far as their toughness and stuff, look, I think every team is trying to find ways to kind of just be a little bit tougher throughout the season. I think you could say Jacksonville, same thing. I think the Chargers had been that way for a while. I think, I think the Bills were that way for a period of time. So, I think that's, look, the Cowboys would be the first team that jumped to mind in terms of hey, could you just be a little bit tougher, a little bit, less, chirpy in the media and just take care of business. So I don't really see it as a huge problem in Miami, and maybe that's just by comparison to some other teams in the league.
Now, the Darren Waller acquisition, I'm not sure how much sense this make. I know Waller dealt with his issues and he's overcome them, and that's wonderful, first and foremost. But this was a guy that, and Tim, there's a razor's edge, or there's a thin line between having that passion each and every game and securing that passion so you can play with a level of competitiveness that you need. And when a guy says, I've lost that passion, for me, it's hard to get it back. So I don't understand why Miami chose to trade away Jonnu. Maybe it was the contract and they felt they just couldn't get in, they couldn't come together on a deal. Maybe it was that, but I don't see any benefit from getting rid of Jonnu and then bringing in a guy that has been retired over a year, and he retired because he lost the passion to play the game.
Yeah. Normally guys are retired before they know they're retired. So when they start talking about being retired, then they're really done, right? Look, it's hard. And you see veteran players that end up going somewhere and then 5 days into training camp, they're out. So what was the compensation? It was a 7th round pick.
Yeah.
Maybe even conditional based on him being on the roster or things like that. So, my guess is it's maybe somebody that was like, yeah, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe there's some conversation there, maybe a fresh start, maybe, the idea that, it's, low risk from the standpoint of what the compensation is for a guy that, look, tight ends are hard to find, guys that can run routes and get open and create matchup problems. They're difficult to find, and you can't have enough of them. So, that's my guess on it is, low risk, potential good upside. But I tend to agree with you. Just, probably you and I have a similar experience in terms of seeing guys and just knowing where they are mentally. And if you're not in it mentally, it's way too much of a grind to make it through.
Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst, head coach of the Ensworth Tigers football team, joining us on the Mace Vingan and Donick as he does every Tuesday. Tim, great stuff, my friend. We'll catch up next week.
Hey, I appreciate you guys being flexible with me on the dead period, man. Okay,
Oh, no problem, man.
everyone-
Anytime. When do y'all start up?
Hey, it's a dead period, D-Man. It's like everyone needs to recharge. Okay.
But when do y'all start up? Or you don't even want to think about that.
We're back at it on July 7th. Once the dead period is over, we're back at it. I still am reserving that parking spot for you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, man. I need it
And
this season.
I put a line through the middle because I know you don't like anyone that parks too close to you either. So you take a seat spot.
Yeah, I like to open my doors wide, you know.
All right, fellas. See ya.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Tim. Tim Hasselbeck on the program, 615-737-1025. A couple of NHL free agent pieces of information. If there are futures bets on which team will lose in the Stanley Cup final next season, I would put it all on the Los Angeles Kings because Corey Perry has signed with the LA Kings. So Corey Perry leaving Edmonton, going to Los Angeles, a team he tortured for years and years and years as a member of the Anaheim Ducks. But Corey Perry leaving Edmonton, going to Los Angeles. Also, the top defenseman left on the market, Vladislav Gavrikov, formerly of the LA Kings, has
say that again.
Vladislav Gavrikov.
Okay. All right.
Has signed a 7-year deal with the New York Rangers. He leaves the Kings, signs with the Rangers, 7 years, $7 million per season. Still no news for the Predators in free agency, but we will bring all of those updates to you. 615-737-1025. We'll get back to the question we were asking before. Are the Tennessee Titans the NFL's most anonymous franchise? This coming out after George Kittle made one of the Predators' first-round selections last week, and also Mike Florio legit forgetting about Brian Callahan. So are the Tennessee Titans the NFL's most anonymous franchise? 615-737-1025. Let me tell all of you that this September, Tim McGraw will be performing at Trying Tix's Rock the Cradle in Nashville, a meaningful event supporting newborns and moms at Ascension St. Thomas Midtown. Get your tickets now at rockthecradlenashville.org. D. Mace Fingen and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, Nick Frazier here with you. Willie Donick and David Janes out today, as you heard in that update from Nick Frazier. Still nothing on the Predators front in NHL free agency. Not that we are totally surprised by that, but we will keep you updated on any and all moves that the Predators make. Friend of the show, Elliot Freeman, reporting just a couple of minutes ago that former Predators forward Tanner Jeannot signing a 5-year deal with the Boston Bruins with a $3.4 million cap hit. The Nashville Predators still dining out on that trade of Tanner Jeannot to the Tampa Bay Lightning from a couple of years ago. Had a first-round pick in the draft on Friday as a result of that Tanner Jeannot deal. But Tanner Jeannot off to Boston, 5 years with a $3.4 million cap hit. So we will keep you abreast. That's a good word. Keep you abreast. Grow up, everybody who's snickering, of the goings-on in NHL free agency, especially when it comes to, of course, the Predators. But the question that I posed to all of you before we talk to Tim Hasselbeck, are the Tennessee Titans the most anonymous franchise in the NFL? And this was inspired by two things. The first, George Kittle being one of the celebrities to announce the Predators' first-round draft pick on Friday. And Gentry Estes of the Tennessean tweeted this, quote, "Does anyone else think it's strange that the NFL player who is most commonly associated with Nashville's NHL team, enough to be selected to announce the Preds pick during the first round of the draft, plays for the 49ers and not the Titans?" So that was the first thing that inspired me. The second thing was a story on Pro Football Talk by Mike Florio. He did a list of coaches on the hot seat. And then he had a separate headline, "Is Brian Callahan on the hot seat in 2025?" And this is the lead of the story. Quote, "I was talking to my son last night about the recent PFT list of the 5 hottest coaching seats. Said my son, quote, 'Is Brian Callahan on it?' Said I, quote, 'Shucks.'" Instead, not shucks. So this was not a situation where Mike Florio was putting together his list and thought long and hard about putting Brian Callahan on it and decided not to. It sounds like Mike Florio legit forgot about Brian Callahan. So with those two things in mind, are the Tennessee Titans the most anonymous franchise in the NFL? Andrew from Murfreesboro, he called the team that I think is a close second. He said, yes to the Titans being the most forgettable franchise, but a close second, I would say, is the Arizona Cardinals. Can any of y'all name the Cardinals head coach? I sure can't. That's Andrew in the bro. Is it Jonathan Gannon?
Chase and him was doing this exercise, I think, last
It is
week.
Jonathan Gannon.
There you go.
Here
Here's another for you, Adam. And it's right up your wheelhouse, and you may not even like it. Your very own New Orleans Saints. But they are there. They don't try it. Don't try to make it seem like your team is relevant. They're not. Outside of Carr retiring, and now they are probably more than likely about to start the rookie out of Indiana,
Tyler Shuck out of Louisville.
Yeah, Tyler Shuck out of Louisville. They're looking to start him as their quarterback in the season opener. Who is their coach?
Kellen Moore.
Yeah, Kellen Moore. He got the job. Yeah. See, I didn't even know that. So they are there too.
The Saints could be in the running for this right now. I guess it depends on whether or not you are looking at history, or if you're solely looking at right now. Because certainly right now, the New Orleans Saints could be in the running for this unfortunate title of NFL's most anonymous team. But historically, they certainly wouldn't be.
First player come to mind with the New Orleans Saints. First player, boom, right now.
Drew Brees.
See?
You mean
that tells you right there.
Are you meaning historically or right now?
No, I'm just saying right now.
Oh, okay. Alvin Kamara.
That's it. Alvin Kamara, maybe Tyson Hill, Olave. So that's three guys and really two.
Cam Jordan.
Yeah, Cam Jordan. Yeah, but I think he's getting
Tyrann
ready.
Matthew.
No. No.
No?
They're like the Titans. They are just like the Titans. Believe me, they are the Titans of the NFC.
Okay, that's fair.
Because you name a couple of players for them, and I can name a couple of players for the Titans.
Well,
we can't name the quarterbacks because they haven't proven anything yet. But I think I have the upper hand.
You might be
because
at
they have the first pick in the draft.
You
with
might
Cam
be
Moore.
at a slight advantage because you live here and you played for the franchise. So yeah, you may be able to
So I
name
may
some
be
Titans
biased,
players. One texter says the Atlanta Falcons.
No, I don't think. I think Atlanta is a rising team.
But let's form what the main factors are.
Exactly.
Star power is a big one.
Atlanta has that, I believe.
Somewhat. Would you say Bijan Robinson?
Yeah, Bijan Robinson. No, not Michael Penix, but they do have star power. Bijan Robinson and the tight end. What's his name?
Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, Kyle Pitts. He's a household name, I believe. He's one of the better tight ends in the national. One of the best if he can ever get everything, on a consistent basis with him.
I think the NFC South is filled to the brim with anonymous franchises. The Texans, I think, have graduated from this for a moment just because they've been winning the division. They've been in the playoffs, so people have seen them, although I believe they play the early Saturday game every year. They're in the playoffs. So, but the Colts, Jaguars, and Titans, I think you could probably all lump into that category.
No, you can't put the Colts in that category for whatever reason. For whatever reason, the Colts are always talked about.
That is true.
And for no other reason.
The Anthony Richardson thing is going to keep the Colts in the news.
Yes.
So there's that. I guess the question is, how much are we factoring franchise history into this? Like, are we looking at this from a historical perspective? I should have probably figured this out before debuting this topic. Are we looking at this from an historical perspective, or are we looking at this from the here and now?
I think you got to look at it from the here and now, because if you look at it from a historical standpoint, New Orleans is irrelevant.
Yes.
Because they've won a championship. You look at some of these other teams, Indianapolis, they are relevant. They've won a championship. Who else we had, in that sort of list? The Arizona Cardinals. They've been to a Super Bowl.
I think the Cardinals
they've had a few years here and there.
I think the Cardinals could give the Titans a
Yeah,
run
they could.
for their money in the most anonymous franchise sweepstakes.
But and so I mean, we're talking about the here and now.
I somehow remembered that Jonathan Gannon coaches the Arizona Cardinals. I know they have Kyler Murray.
They have Harrison.
They've got Marvin Harrison Jr. They've got James Conner at running back.
Don't forget about Trey McBride, tight end.
That's right. He got paid
Stud.
quite a bit.
Yeah.
Didn't Calais Campbell go back to Arizona?
I'm not sure. I can look.
So I know more Arizona Cardinals players than I thought. Maybe I should remove them from this. Yes, Calais Campbell is back with the Arizona Cardinals. So, yeah, the Cardinals were, to Andrew from the Burrows point, the Cardinals were the first team that came to mind. If not the Titans, then who? The Cardinals were the first team that came to mind.
I think I would guess.
I think market also plays into this as well. Like, the Los Angeles Chargers are not a team that is front of mind for a lot of people, but they do play in Los Angeles, and they have a star quarterback.
Well, the Chargers have always
and they have a well-known coach.
Yeah, the Chargers have always been this way. They've been the best sort of not forgotten team, but the best team that you sort of put on the back burner for whatever reason. And I think a lot of it has to do with history, because they've had their opportunities to put themselves either in a position to win a Super Bowl. They got mollywopped by, I think it was San Fran that year. They went to the Super Bowl. Was it San Fran? If I can remember, it may have been San Fran, but they got beat down by them. And then when they had LaDainian Tomlinson, They had who was the quarterback then?
Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, Phillip Rivers. They had this basically all-star team and end up losing to the New England Patriots in the AFC Championship. So the Chargers have been that team that they've been good, but people don't talk about them as much because it's like, okay, yeah, you talk about them, but then they end up disappointing you. And now that their division has gotten much harder, even with having, Jim Harbaugh there, it's still a division with who? The Kansas City Chiefs.
I'm looking at the teams by division.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any of the teams in the AFC East are in the running for this.
No.
Not Buffalo, not Miami,
No.
not New England, and not the New York Jets. In the AFC North,
New England was close. They were close.
There's still that, like, anytime that Bill Belichick and Jordan Hudson get mentioned, remember when we talked a lot about Jordan Hudson, but she's still floating around there. It's New England Patriots adjacent, so that keeps the Patriots sort of in the news. So I would eliminate any of the teams from the AFC East. In the AFC North, Ravens, they do not qualify. The Bengals do not qualify. The Browns, they make headlines all the time, and the Steelers. So I wouldn't include any of those teams. The AFC South may be home to the most anonymous franchises in the NFL. In the AFC West, Broncos, Chiefs, Raiders, Chargers. I wouldn't put any of those teams in that category. Same with the teams in the NFC East: Cowboys, Giants, Eagles, Commanders. I would say the same thing for the NFC North: Bears, Lions, Packers, Vikings. So to me,
the AFC South and AFC North are battling, or is it the AFC South?
I think it's the AFC.
NFC
I
West?
think it's the AFC South and the NFC South.
Yeah. That's what, yep.
Falcons, Panthers, Saints, and Bucks.
Yeah, and you got to figure, man, nobody, as history is on your side because your team has won a championship, but nobody's talking about the Saints and nobody's talking about the Carolina Panthers.
Right. If I had to put a team behind the Tennessee Titans right now, it would be the Arizona Cardinals. I never think about the Arizona Cardinals, despite the fact that I know a lot of people associated with the Arizona Cardinals for some reason, but it just goes to show you where the Titans are right now. We all hope that Cam Ward becomes a superstar, and we're not having this conversation anymore. One texter says, anonymous is the wrong word. Irrelevant is the word you're looking for. The Titans are the most irrelevant franchise in the NFL. You could use anonymous, forgettable, irrelevant.
I don't think they are. Again, I would put Carolina ahead of them. I will put the Saints ahead of them. And then it's Arizona and then the Titans.
So remember a few years ago when the Titans went viral for their NFL schedule reveal video, where they were just talking to people on the street on Broadway and they had no idea what any of these team logos were. I watched it a couple of weeks ago. It just showed up on my feed. Still hilarious a couple of years later. If you did a man on the street type interview of people on Broadway and you said, name one player who plays for the Tennessee Titans right now, who do you think would be the first player that comes to mind? I don't think it would be Cam Ward. It might be Cam Ward, actually. But I bet there would be a lot of people who would still say Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be. To me, it would be either Derrick Henry or Cam Ward, one of the two. And that in itself, is bad when there's still good players amongst this team. But when we think about the Tennessee Titans and you put somebody on the spot and you say, first player to come to mind, unfortunately, I think it's going to be Derrick Henry or Cam Ward, fortunately for Cam Ward. But, they have, Calvin Ridley on all, and I'm just talking offense. And that's the part. They don't have enough guys that, listen, you don't need to be a household name because that's only for the so few. There's about 10 guys, 15 guys, I think, across the board that are more household name, and you can break it down by position and leaving the offensive lineman out, because you could be a all pro or pro bowler and people still don't know about you because you play on the offensive line or at times the defensive line. But it's like those players, and when you start naming those players, the household players, even if once you get past 25, 30, a Titans player is not going to show up. They're just not.
One texter says, Josh from Murfreesboro says, I think Carolina is more relevant, quote unquote, than the Titans because they're so bad. They're easier to laugh at, meaning the Carolina Panthers are easier to laugh at than
Wouldn't the
Tennessee
Tyson
Titans.
be easier to laugh at too?
I don't
Even though
know.
I don't put the Titans at last on that list. I think there are 3 or 4 teams ahead of them.
Sometimes when you're just trying to fight back tears, you all you can do is laugh. And that's how I kind of feel watching the Tennessee Titans right now. It's just like, it's the least we can do is just try to laugh through this terrible, terrible season and hope that it doesn't happen again.
And again, every team, you don't need to have 6 or 7 household names on your roster. It would be great, but we know it's just not like that in sports across the realm. But you got to have guys that are high impact guys. And, in order to have a successful offense, you got to have at least 2 or 3 of those guys, I believe, high impact guys. And on defense, I think it has to be the same. But you do have to have those guys underneath them that are playing at a really good level as well. So, and the Titans, they haven't consistently had that over the last 3 years.
615-737-1025. We will take your thoughts on if you think the Titans are the most anonymous franchise in the NFL. 615-737-1025. Still nothing from the Nashville Predators in NHL free agency. The market opened at 11 a.m. Still waiting for the first move to be reported by the Nashville Predators. That has not happened. Not much has happened since the last time I updated you, but I will keep you up to date on all things NHL free agency. We'll see if the Predators have something up their sleeves. But speaking of the Predators, coming up next, although the Predators haven't made any signings today is sort of an important day for the Nashville Predators. It may not make a lot of you happy, but nonetheless, we'll discuss. Coming up next, 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Still nothing on the free agent front for the Nashville Predators. Here's what I find hilarious about the NHL, Derek. And I know it's different because the NHL has a hard cap. But Mitch Marner, who was the top free agent available, he signs with the Vegas Golden Knights. He's making $12 million a year. And then Shea Gilgeous-Alexander signs a 4-year, $285 million Supermax contract, the richest annual salary for a player in NBA history. So I just think it's funny comparing the two. By the way, shout out Luke Cornett getting the bag. Former Vanderbilt big man Luke Cornett, 4-year deal worth $41 million, leaving the Boston Celtics and joining the San Antonio Spurs. So Luke Cornett.
Hey, every time I watch Luke, he was balling.
Is his mom still on the news?
I think she is.
Why?
Tracy? Yeah, I believe so.
Tracy, if you're listening,
she wanted to do her own
kick
thing.
your feet up.
She probably still is.
Luke's got you covered, man. Well, not man, ma'am.
Best believe she's like, listen, I don't expect my son to do anything, so she's gonna keep on doing her thing. But I think Luke brings a presence that I think San Antonio needs, another big fella, because Wemby, he's been injured, and hopefully he comes back and he's fully healthy this upcoming season. But you got to have someone that has been on a championship team. He was on their Boston Celtics championship team 2 years ago, and he played some key minutes in that championship game. And balled out. So good for Luke. He deserves it, man.
So nothing has happened with the Nashville Predators so far on July 1st. 1 year ago today, we were celebrating the signings of Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault and Brady Shea. The Predators spent more money than any other team in free agency last year, or at least on July 1st. But something else also happens today. UC Saros's 8-year contract is officially underway. It has taken effect, which also means that UC Saros now officially has a no movement clause for the next 6 years. 6 of the 8 years on this deal, UC Saros has a no movement clause in his contract. So for those of you who were begging and pleading, Barry Trotz, please find a way to get out of this deal before July 1st. Jared leading the way on that. Sorry about your damn luck, to quote James Storm. That's not going to happen. UC Saros, day one of that 8-year contract, $7.74 million cap hit. And as we discussed the other day, Derek, talking about Barry Trotz and how we would evaluate him so far as Predators GM, I said that the Yaroslav Askarov trade would be the litmus test for Predators fans on how you feel about Barry Trotz. I think you can combine the two, the UC Saros extension and the Yaroslav Askarov trade, which was a result of that extension. How you feel about Barry Trotz as a GM, I can probably tell based on how you feel about those two moves together. So UC Saros, this is day one of his 8-year contract, which he signed 1 year ago today, because he was eligible for his extension 1 year ago today. He just finished the final year of his previous contract. But today, Derek Mason, day one of the UC Saros 8-year contract.
Judgment Day has begun.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Precisely.
There we go. Judgment Day starts today. He will be judged, even though, I'm sure many of you have, judged him even before the contract started. But yeah, it starts now. And listen, whether I'm going to channel my inner Willie, because as the salary cap goes up, this contract will end up being a good contract if UC Saros gets back to form. I think it ended up being more than a good contract. I think if he gets back up to form, he'd be underpaid moving forward. That's just my opinion on that, but it's yet to be seen, because last season wasn't good for anybody, and let alone the goalie. And I try to give him some grace because the guys in front of him, from a defensive standpoint, wasn't doing their job. But yet and still, we've seen UC Saros play at a high level consistently, even when he didn't, nights he didn't have, good defense in front of him. I'm talking about in the past, prior to last season. So, Pete, that's what people expect when UC Saros is in between the nets, and rightfully so.
Joey from Bellevue says, Adam, James Storm is my son's mom's cousin.
Son's
mom's cousin.
Okay.
All right. Big James Storm fan when he was in TNA Wrestling, which launched right here in Nashville, Tennessee. So, UC Saros. It's complicated.
To say the least, huh?
Yeah. So as Jared has termed it, the station civil war of 2024, the Avengers, which consisted of you,
yes,
Willie, and Ian, as I understand it, versus the anti-Avengers. I'm not. It may come as a shock to you. I'm not a huge Marvel Cinematic Universe person.
Yeah.
So I don't know who the Avengers are going up against, but the villains in this.
They're DC. Just to say they're DC. We'll make them the villains.
That's fine.
Yeah.
The villains, those against UC Saros, Jared, Caroline, Robbie,
yes,
Joe. I was also on that side. For me, it was more about the contractual timelines. Because when UC Saros broke into the NHL, Pekka Rinne was nearing the end of his NHL career. So the contractual timelines lined up where it was going to be a smooth transition from Rinne to Saros. That was not going to be the case here because Saros was about to sign a big contract and Yaroslav Askarov was ready to transition to more of a full-time NHL role. So I thought for that reason, the Predators should move on from Saros. I also thought in order to take that step back, they should move on from the more proven goalie and take a shot on the first-round goaltending prospect. So I wasn't leading the charge against UC Saros like Jared.
But you were there.
But I was there. So
I saw a sword in your hand.
the timing of the worst season of his career could not have come at the worst, time. Because we knew that he was about to start this contract, and last season we know was abysmal for everybody on the Nashville Predators. But UC Saros, knowing that 8-year contract was coming, put up the worst season of his career, a .298 goals against average and an .896 save percentage. Now,
okay, can I be a
devil's advocate?
Yeah, or a
contrarian
UC Saros
supporter?
Supporter or
defender.
Exactly. Wouldn't it be, and listen, I get it, and I'm just throwing it out there. And the minute I said, I know it sounds crazy, but it is what it is because I wouldn't want it. But wouldn't you rather have him have his worst season of his career all while all those other guys are having a worst season of their career? So you could say, well, it really wasn't as much of UC Saros than it was those other guys.
You must be wearing some rose-colored contacts, Derek Mason.
I'm trying here. I'm trying.
It's
but I admitted it.
Right. It's difficult. It's difficult to defend the play of UC Saros. And look, in the next segment, I'm going to try to play both sides here, and criticizing UC Saros, but also attempting to defend UC Saros and the Predators, because I do think there are ways that you can go about doing it. But with all of the other moves that the Predators made, because remember, this contract, this 8-year contract, the Predators and UC Saros agreed to it 1 year ago today, I believe. It was overshadowed by the free agent moves, but the Predators signed UC Saros long-term. So it was essentially a 9-year contract because you had the 1 year left on the contract that just expired and the 8 years coming up again, day one today of the UC Saros contract. And I agree with Jared. He said this quite a bit, that Barry Trotz's job security is going to be influenced significantly by how that UC Saros contract ages. So 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Today is day one of the UC Saros 8-year contract. It has officially taken effect, a $7.74 million cap hit, a no movement clause until, let's see, 6 years from now. So that would be 2031? Yikes. 615-737-1025. How are you feeling about the UC Saros contract on the first day of said contract? And will Barry Trotz rue that decision? 615-737-1025. Coming up next, I'm going to both sides this a little bit. I'm going to offer some criticisms, but also attempt to defend the Predators and UC Saros. Let's see how well I can do. 615-737-1025. Tune into ESPN 94.9 The Fan tonight as the Nashville Sounds take on Memphis. Pregame begins at 6:20 p.m. and the first pitch is at 6:35 p.m. Coverage is also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. Sounds Baseball on ESPN 94.9 The Fan is presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure.
could you trade UC Saros? Is he still tradable way down the road there? So what do we think about specifics? I don't know if that's out there or anything. If you've heard anything along those lines, but what would you speculate?
I haven't heard any specifics, but I can tell you what I think is going on here. And I will confess, I could be proven to be wrong because I don't know 100%.
You wrong? Come on. You're not wrong.
It happens. This is what I think it is. First of all, what teams usually do, and in most cases this does happen, there are some where it doesn't. What teams usually do is they will say, look, you have to give me an out on the back end. If things go south on the back end, or we need to move you for cap reasons or something like that, you have to give me an off ramp. And in most cases that does happen. There are some where it doesn't. So I would bet when all is said and done and this contract is filed, we'll see that he has some pretty strict no trade protection for at least the first half of the contract.
That was Elliot Freeman on our show 1 year ago tomorrow, July 2nd, 2024, reacting to the UC Saros trade. UC Saros indeed has some strict trade protection, a full no movement clause in the first 6 years of his contract, which is officially underway July 1st, 2025, the first day of UC Saros' 8-year contract with the Nashville Predators. Evan on our text line, driven by Wilson County on date.com, says, T-minus 2,920 days till Saros is gone. He's not worth the money. It is too small and sucks. That was the start of Barry Trotz being a terrible general manager. Again, the UC Saros contract and the Yaroslav Askarov trade that resulted from that UC Saros contract, to me, is the litmus test for Barry Trotz. How you feel about how Barry Trotz is as a GM depends on how you feel about those two moves, which kind of happened in concert. So look, I'm going to attempt to play both sides of this. And there might be some stretching involved, but I'm going to attempt to play both sides of this. So let's start with a positive for UC Saros. UC Saros makes $7.74 million against the cap. That will be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the 9th highest cap hit in the NHL next season. Earlier today, Thatcher Demko of the Vancouver Canucks signed a new contract that will pay him $8.5 million per season. That will take effect in 2026, 2027. So as of now, not this coming season, but the season after, Saros will be the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th. I had to do my counting so it wasn't just silent there. The 10th highest paid goalie in the NHL by cap hit. So in terms of the money that the Predators are allocating to UC Saros, in the grand scheme, not too bad. Here are the goalies, by the way, who will make more money either this coming season or the following season. These goalies will be making more money than UC Saros. Igor Shesterkin with the New York Rangers, Sergei Bobrovsky with the Florida Panthers, Andrei Vasilevsky with the Tampa Bay Lightning, Connor Hellebuck with the Winnipeg Jets. Not this coming season, but the season after. Thatcher Demko of the Vancouver Canucks, Jeremy Swayman of the Boston Bruins, Jake Ottinger of the Dallas Stars, Ilya Sorokin of the New York Islanders, and Linus Ullmark of the Ottawa Senators. All of those goalies will make more money per season than UC Saros, either starting this coming season or, in the case of Demko, the 2026-2027 season. So that's the first thing in favor of UC Saros. His cap hit is not that bad.
Yes, and that's what I'm channeling my inner Willie Donick here. And that's what Willie was talking about. But even with that, if he doesn't, get back to the level that we've seen him play, where, he's a Vezina finalist, if he doesn't get back to that level, it doesn't matter how much you're paying him, he's not going to be worth it. So whether a lot of it depends on UC Saros. If he plays well, then this is a great contract because ultimately he will be underpaid. If he doesn't play well, this is a horrible contract because you're not paying somebody $7 million and their goal percent or stop percentage is 90 or below.
Okay, CC on our text line leads me to my next point. How many playoff series has he won?
Yeah.
He's won 0. That's a knock against Juicy Saros. He's played in 3 playoff series. Here's the sunny side up version of that. How many of those playoff series losses would you blame on UC Saros? I can think of one against the then Arizona Coyotes in the COVID bubble in August of 2020.
Hey, Adam, how many goals did what was the last series they had
against Vancouver?
How many goals did Vancouver? What was that goal discrepancy? It was like 11 to 12, wasn't it?
UC Saros allowed 12 goals in 6 games
And they
against
scored
the Vancouver
and they
Canucks.
scored 11.
I think that's right. So
it's not all on UC.
That would be my contrarian point to. Well, he hasn't won a playoff series. Well, how many playoff series would you blame him for? Against the Carolina Hurricanes in 2021, he had a .921 save percentage in that playoff round against the Carolina Hurricanes. In back-to-back games in that series, when the Predators were down 2-0 and tied the series with 2 wins at home, he stopped 110 of 117 shots. That's a .940 save percentage. So again, that's the contrarian view that, yes, he has not won the playoff series, but how many of those series can you blame him for? I think you can really only blame him for one of the 3. And remember, he did not play against the Colorado Avalanche in 2022 because he was injured late in the season. That was a combination of David Riddick and Connor Ingram in net. So again, this is me. I'm trying to play both sides here. UC Saros has been in decline in recent seasons. His peak was in 2021. He had a .228 goals against average and .927 save percentage that season in 36 games. In 2023, he had a .269 goals against average and .919 save percentage. Over the past 3 seasons, his save percentage has gone from .919 to .906 to .895. His goals against average has gone up from .269 to .286 to .298. Again, last season was the worst season of UC Saros' career.
And that's why I say, no matter if you're making $7 million or $77 million, if the job isn't getting done, it's going to be a bad contract regardless. But if he's back to that or closer to that peak form, where his save percentage isn't under 90, then whatever you're paying him is going to be about right, and people are going to look at the contract as it being a good contract.
So Matthew in Nashville says, so hypothetically, if Saros stinks up the joint next season, the cap hit if the Preds cut him isn't too horrible. Okay. I've decided to look up what happens if the Predators were to buy out UC Saros before the start of the 2026-2027 season. Derek, would you venture to guess how long the Predators would have to pay UC Saros if they bought out his contract after next season?
After next season, so they still would have 7 seasons left.
But
it's like you push it out further than
if
that.
the Predators were to buy out UC Saros after this
the next
season,
10 years,
they would be paying him until 2040. Wow, 2040. Wow, because I believe it's double the length of the remaining contract. Okay. So that would be 14 years if my math is right. So yes, the Predators would save, to answer your question, Matthew, if the Predators bought out UC Saros, they would save roughly $5 million against the cap in 2026-27.
But then they got to go pay somebody else.
And then it fluctuates. So, but the idea of paying UC, that's some Bobby Bonilla type stuff. Also, happy Bobby Bonilla Day to everybody. And we will talk to noted Mets fan Turron Davenport in a couple of minutes. We'll talk to him about Bobby Bonilla.
Bobby Bonilla Day?
It is.
Oh, wow.
As Matthew says, it would be our own Bobby Bonilla. That's absolutely right. One texter says, look at the starters for the defense last year. I can't hold that against Saros with Twinkle Toes Justin Barron back there. One texter, Joel from Woodbury, says, most of the blame should be on the lack of good defensemen. Saros got worse after Ekholm was traded. So that, again, let's play both sides of this. Because when I would attempt to defend UC Saros this past season, I would always point out the goal support. He did not get goal support. Think of a pitcher not getting run support. Same thing. UC Saros would lose games that he probably should have won because the Predators couldn't score goals. And as the texter notes, the defense was an absolute mess. 15 different defensemen suited up for the Nashville Predators last season, tying a franchise record. So that would be my attempt of defending UC Saros. Here's the flip side, as Jared likes to say. Well, if the goalie is dependent on the defense in front of him, why are you paying the goalie? Pay more, better defensemen, and then stick a Scarbini back there. So that would be the counter argument. So one texter says, why are NHL contracts so long? Can they not do 3 or 4 years like the NFL? Well, I mean, that's West and Clarksville. Well, West, they can. And by the way, in the new collective bargaining agreement, which takes effect, not this coming season, maybe the season after, the contract lengths are going to be subtracted by 1. So right now, if you re-sign with your team, you can sign for up to 8 years. If you leave your team and sign with a new team, you can only sign for a max of 7. In the new CBA, it's going to subtract by 1 year. So players re-signing with their clubs can only sign for 7 years, and players signing with new teams can only sign for 6. So players can, Wes, sign for 3 or 4 years, but a lot of players like to get max term for that security. But that's me playing both sides of the UC Saros argument. So look, UC Saros, regardless of which side of the aisle you sit, when it comes to UC Saros, he was bad last season. There's no doubt about it. And he needs to be absolutely 100%, 200%, 300% better if the Predators have any chance of bouncing back. But the Predators' decision to re-sign UC Saros to an 8-year contract, that was a big one. As I've been saying, that's sort of the litmus test for me for how you feel about Barry Trotz as a GM in the NHL, how you feel about the decision to re-sign UC Saros and in tandem trading Yaroslav Askarov. But again, day one of UC Saros' new contract, his no movement clause is officially locked in. So if UC Saros wants to go anywhere, it's all up to him. I doubt that's going to happen. 615, at least right now. 615-737-1025. Still nothing on the free agency front for the Nashville Predators, although the market has now been open for almost 2 hours, a huge difference from this day 1 year ago. But we will continue to update you on any moves the Predators make. Turron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, will join us next. We'll talk about Bobby Bonilla Day with the New York Mets fan, Turron Davenport, as well as get into the Tennessee Titans as well. 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. D. Mace Finnegan and Donick 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, Nick Frazier here with you, joined on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com, by our good friend Turron Davenport, ESPN, NFL Nation, Titans reporter. Turron, Willie is out today, so I don't have anybody else to say this to. Happy Bobby Bonilla Day, my friend.
Yeah, happy Bobby Bonilla Day. But I tell you, I think somewhat proximate the Baltimore Orioles. They're also paying Bobby Bo $500,000 a year as well. So I could get into the story of what happened and why if you want, but
why not?
Okay,
go for it.
Hey, quickly, TD, before you tell that story. Hey, I'm headed to NY, man. I'm gonna have to shoot you a text, man, because I need some I know you're a Mets fan, but I'm trying to get some Yankee tickets, man. Or I can get some Mets tickets.
I'll see what I could do, but that'll be hard. I'm in NY right now.
Oh, are you? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
I'll be down there in a few days.
All right, we'll have to figure it out. I got you.
Okay.
But yeah, so the Adam, for your story, this is what happened. When they signed Bobby Bonilla, when they signed him, rather than pay him immediately, they agreed to this annuity because they took the money that they were going to pay him and reinvested it with Bernie Madoff, and that was supposed to give him even a more highly compounded amount than even having it the way it is now with Bobby Bo. But we know what happened with the Bernie Madoff, and there's your Mets history lesson for today.
Bobby Bonilla
Bernie Madoff
did an interview with Sportico about Bobby Bonilla Day. By the way, today he receives his deposit of roughly $1.2 million from the New York Mets, the 15th of 25 payments that will extend annually to 2035. He said in an interview, quote, "It's bigger than my birthday. People know this date more than they know my birthday. I think it's very cool. People are just happy that I put the money aside." So happy Bobby Bonilla Day to all of those who celebrate. But Turron, we heard from L'Jarius Sneed the other day. He did an interview with NBC 6 News in Shreveport, Louisiana, I believe a football camp that he runs or participates in. And he said, among other things, "I missed a whole year and I have to remind everybody who L'Jarius Sneed is." So what should we expect from Sneed as training camp starts? Should we expect him to be a full participant? And as we're setting our expectations for L'Jarius Sneed this coming season, what should be that baseline?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, that sure sounded good, right?
Yes,
and I think to take it from verbal to physical, he needs to be there and be practice. And I know he has his own management plan and everything like that, but in order to get to the level that he previously was, he needs to get back into, the grind, just going through and getting it about the mud, how he did when he first got into the league as a fifth or fourth round draft pick. So that's what the expectation should be. That's what my expectation would be if I'm Brian Callahan and, of course, Denard Wilson.
Are there any updates on his legal situations?
No. I believe there was supposed to a grand jury last month, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that. I'm not positive, but I haven't heard anything other than that.
Turron, yesterday in the NFL, a blockbuster. I believe this is the adequate use of the adjective blockbuster to describe this trade between the Dolphins and Steelers. Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith going one way, Minkah Fitzpatrick going the other way. How do you grade this trade from both the Steelers and Dolphins perspectives?
Yeah, it's a weird trade, right? I mean, you would think Minkah Fitzpatrick was solidified as part of that Steelers defense. And I mean, obviously we know what was going on with Ramsey. I think the thing that's interesting with that is despite Jalen Ramsey being a guy who has deteriorated a bit to the point where they consider moving him to safety, everyone knows that he's available. So to be able to have all that be the situation, still get value in Fitzpatrick back, I think that's a good deal. But at the same time, I'm of the belief that you don't get better by trading good players. Like it doesn't So the Jonnu Smith one is confusing, but I mean, look, they went and they made a trade for Darren Waller, so they're going to pull him out of the rap video and into the locker room.
How do you feel about Darren Waller unretiring and joining the Miami Dolphins?
I tell you what's interesting. I was in Baltimore when he got drafted, and I remember he was a receiver, and I remember watching Bobby Ingram just work with him over and over and over again to condense himself. Because you see how big he is, so you can't be that big of a target. And then just his whole story is cool. He looks like he's still in good shape, judging from the video he made. So it's low risk, high reward, if you ask me.
Now, TD, in discuss and looking at this, because I just found it, like you, it odd that the Dolphins would trade away a Jonnu Smith, who has excelled in their offense, to go get a guy that was playing pretty good, but he lost the love of the game and he was injured. To bring him in now and to expect, or maybe they don't expect the production there, just like you said, it's a high reward, low risk type of deal for them. But when you're looking at McDaniel, because he sort of comes off as a guy that my system makes you don't make my system. So when you look at a Jonnu, they can let him go on and they can just plug another tight end in his place.
Yeah, well, we know that's what they could do at the running back position.
Yeah.
But, we'll add this on Jonnu's touchdown reception total. It was the most by tight end in the history of the Dolphins. Now, mind you, they had some pretty good ones, including Keith Jackson. But I think when you look at what you said, that's exactly the belief I think McDaniel has, is that he makes you know what I mean? And no matter what is plug and play. And I mean, I think if you look, it kind of carries on from Shanahan, because, that's how even back further to Mike Shanahan, when he had all those, plug and play players, it's just a belief.
Now, we had a discussion earlier about irrelevant franchises.
The word I used,
yes, anonymous.
Turron, is anonymous for two reasons. One, George Kittle announcing one of the Predators' first-round draft picks over the weekend, and Gentry Estes saying, does anybody else find it weird that the NFL player most commonly associated with Nashville's NHL team is a player who does not play for Nashville's NFL team? And the other one was Mike Florio wrote a story for Pro Football Talk on Brian Callahan being on the hot seat. And the lead of the story was that he legitimately forgot about Brian Callahan. So I just thought, are the Titans the most anonymous franchise in the NFL? Derek, you take it from there.
And that's what we were trying to come up with, and we asked our listeners. So with that being said, I'm going to ask you, because I threw three other teams that I thought would be more irrelevant or anonymous than the Tennessee Titans. But do you feel that at this point, we're not looking at the history, but just at this point within the last 3 seasons, are the Titans the most anonymous team out there?
Yeah, I would say yes. I think so. Yeah, I believe. I'm guessing Carolina is one of the teams that you were going to.
The Saints was another.
My choice was the Arizona Cardinals behind the Tennessee Titans.
But the Cardinals, they get primetime games, man.
Yeah,
that's
you're
true.
Right.
They do. So I mean, look, the youngster Cameron Ward. Listen, he got the weight of the city on him. We'll see how he could perform. But to your point about being anonymous, when the Titans are good, hey, you get some burn, right? Derrick Henry and everything, get to do the more TV hits. But yeah, it's been a little scarce the last couple years.
And that got me thinking, Turron, and I started to look at every position, and I lumped the offensive line together as just one big position. But when you start to look at it down the board, and we could do that with the defensive line as well. But when you look at it, they, outside of Jeffrey Simmons and even some in this little space, this room, don't even think Jeffrey Simmons cracks the top 10. But if you look at their roster, they have all maybe one player that cracks the top 10 at his position.
Yeah. I mean, look at what, one Pro Bowler last year?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that tells you. That tells you right there. And I mean, we know NFL top 100, they're not going to be, no, there's not going to be anybody in that either, you know, so it is what it is, man.
Yeah, I just found that, and like I explained to people, listen, you don't need a bunch of, you know, all pro guys, and that would be great. But this team lacks, you know, top end talent, or at least for the last couple of years, they've lacked consistent top end talent. Even Jeffrey Simmons, who we believe is a baller, his play even dipped a little bit last year.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just be real about it. His play has dipped since Danico Autry left, and that's why he was such a critical piece. So you're 100% right, and I mean, we'll see what Draymond Jones, you know, can bring. He's a guy similar as far as like style of play and being able to do everything from zero to, you know, standing up and coming off the edge. So.
Not Jeffrey Simmons, but Tavondre Sweat. Are you expecting a big jump this year from him? Because I expect him to start, you know, start tapping at that upper echelon as far as defensive guys in the interior. And I'm not just talking about because, you know, sacks. He's not going to get the sacks. That's just the way it is.
Right.
But the other things that he does for that defensive front can't be forgotten.
Right, exactly. The two gap, and even just, you know, sometimes he's got to use his bull rush more. Like, think about all that weight bull rushing on it. I know guards are big, and you know the interior guys are strong, but man, that's a lot. So he does have to use. I think he's going to use that a little bit more, and we'll see what happens. The endurance obviously is there, and I know that was a big issue last year at this time as far as the question mark. But look at him now.
Now you've spoken with D-line coaches. I mean, you've had conversations with Tyrell Williams when he was here with the Titans, and now he's in New England. When you talk to these defensive line coaches, is it imperative for a big fella like Tavondre Sweat to have, you know, 4 or 5 moves, or should he just master 2 to 3 moves and really work on those?
Yeah, they're more in the 2 to 3 move range, and it's. Like, from talking to Coach Rocker, you know, it varies per guy. But one thing that Terrell Williams always made sure that those guys knew how to be violent, knew how to like redirect, and make sure that their hands, whether it was matching the quarterback or slapping hands down, made sure that their hands were good.
Turron, before we let you go, there was a story on NFL Nation yesterday looking at the biggest surprise players on each NFL team this offseason. You landed on linebacker Cody Barton. Why was he your choice?
It was an easy choice for me. I didn't know the leader that they were getting, and you know that's something they're desperately needing. I watched him, you know, talk to James Williams and really help him. Watched him communicate with Cedric Gray when he comes in, and they're on the field together, and even just telling the younger linebackers to get their depth and do different things. I was really impressed with that. Then on top of that, just the energy that he brings to practice, as well as in watching him. He had 2 very good interceptions. You know, one was a gimme. The other one, he did a good job of reading the quarterback's eyes, and he went and he picked Cameron Ward off. So it just overall, I was impressed. I was not expecting to, you know, see the player that I saw. But again, it's shorts, T-shirts, helmets. Last year at this time, you know, Kenneth Murray was looking really good. So you just got to slow walk it and let things work out the way they do.
How bullish are you on the linebacker group as a whole as the training camp starts in a month from now?
I think it's a big incomplete, but I do like the young linebackers in James Williams and Cedric Gray. And even Otis Reese is a guy that we don't talk about at all, but you know, when he's healthy and he's playing, like, that is a see-ball, get-ball player, and they need those types on this defense. So,
Turron Davenport, ESPN, NFL Nation, Titans reporter, joining us on the program. Turron, great stuff as always. Happy Bobby Bonilla Day to you and yours. Enjoy New York.
I'll hit you up, TD.
All right, thank you. Let's go Mets.
Thanks, Turron. Turron Davenport on the program. If only Willie were here. we could really
Yes.
get into the
Bobby
history
Bonilla.
of Bobby Bonilla.
I never knew that Bertie Madoff, there were tentacles, connecting him and Bobby Bonilla and the Mets. I didn't know that.
He was sort of a trailblazer, wasn't he, in terms of deferred payment on contracts?
Who, Bobby Bonilla?
Yeah.
Most notable for sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
I mean, Shohei Ohtani took a lot of deferred money, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I believe Bobby Bonilla, obviously he's known for today, but his name might be overshadowed in the coming years because Ohtani deferred a lot of his money.
Yeah, Ohtani, majority of his money is deferred.
A lot of
like
it.
2050 or something like that. It's crazy.
A lot of it is deferred with his.
I'm looking this up right here.
Is it like $700 million?
He is deferring. He is deferring, according to according to MLB.com. Ohtani is deferring $68 million of his $70 million average salary.
Oh yeah. So that's about
yes,
that's about 90-something%.
Yes, absolutely stunning. But happy Bobby Bonilla Day to you and yours. Celebrate the way that Bobby Bonilla would, now that he has an extra $1.2-ish million in his pocket. 615-737-1025. Still nothing on the free agency front for the Nashville Predators. It's been a boring free agency day for the Nashville Predators. We'll see if they do anything between now and the start of Stillman and Company at 2:00. But yes, a much different day than this time last year. 615-737-1025. But coming up next, I read something yesterday, then I went back and listened to it, and I want to get Derek's thoughts on it. It's Predators adjacent. A former Predators player, quite honest with his situation here in Nashville. We'll discuss that next. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you on NHL Free Agency Day. Still nothing for your Nashville Predators. They've made 0 signings, or at least 0 signings that have been reported. The Utah Mammoth, Derek's new favorite team, just announced a 3-year contract worth $3.5 million per season for defenseman Nate Schmidt, who won the Stanley Cup with the Florida Panthers. They re-signed everybody, so somebody had to leave. And it's Nate Schmidt who played a big role in the bottom half of their defense in the Panthers winning the 2nd Stanley Cup in a row. So Nate Schmidt off to Utah with the Mammoth. Talk about a change in lifestyles from South Florida to Salt Lake City. So maybe a bit of a culture shock upcoming for Nate Schmidt, but still nothing for the Nashville Predators. Again, a much different day than this day last year. By the way, we talked about the fireworks. Dylan texted in and said, Adam, my son leaves on Friday to go to his mom's house for the weekend. So I was planning on shooting fireworks with him Thursday night. Would that be acceptable in your eyes? Yes. Dylan, I will allow that because that's a good reason. I will allow that. If you missed it earlier, so I'm a stickler for some random holiday related things.
Okay.
So for example, I do not think Christmas season starts until Black Friday. Do not, under any circumstances, start celebrating Christmas on November 1st.
I can't watch
Hell
Hallmark.
no.
Can I watch Hallmark movies?
In the comfort of your own home, that's fine. Keep it to yourself. But I'm talking about stores putting up Christmas decorations on November 1st, people hanging Christmas lights on November 1st.
Yeah, I'm with you.
The first day of Christmas season is Black Friday,
I'm
the
with
day after Thanksgiving. And I allow a 1-week grace period following Christmas for the Christmas season. I say that you have to stop all Christmas-related things on New Year's Day. That's it.
I'm taking the tree down immediately. It is down. At the minute I can take it down, once Christmas is over and that next day roll around, we are making plans to take everything off the tree the first day, and then the second day taking the tree down.
So when it comes to fireworks in July 4th, here's how I feel about it. You can fire fireworks on July 4th, or if you have extenuating circumstances like Dylan, you can do it July 3rd. That's it. No fireworks on July 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. The only day it is acceptable to shoot off fireworks yourself is July 4th. I have no tolerance for that. 0 tolerance.
Does that go for the city as well?
No, if it's like a fireworks show or display, like if you go to a baseball game, if you go to a Sounds game, for example.
I'm just saying, like, I'm not talking about during the year. I'm just saying right before July.
This is specific to people purchasing their own fireworks and shooting them off outside their home or in a field or somewhere. I'm not talking about big fireworks displays that you see at baseball games or when the city of Nashville does a July 4th celebration. I'm talking about if you drive somewhere, buy fireworks where you can buy fireworks and then bring them home and fire them off. You can do that for one day, July 4th. That's it. Not July 3rd, not July 5th, July 4th. That is the only day in which that is acceptable.
Can they start at 12 a.m.?
No. I've got a 3-year-old and a dog.
They're going to be shooting them off the next day until 12 a.m. So why can't they start at 12 a.m. or 11:59?
Be considerate of your neighbors. How about that? If you live a little bit further out and you don't have neighbors close by, that's fine. I remember a couple of years ago, I live in a small neighborhood, and someone was shooting off fireworks while my then infant son was trying to sleep, and I had drugged my dog, and it wasn't working. I was pissed.
So your dog goes crazy when he hears fireworks.
Well, what dog doesn't go crazy?
You're right. My dogs didn't. They just, I guess after a while, they were like,
you know whose fault it is, D-Mace? It's the home builder's fault.
Yeah.
That's who it is. Because they did not soundproof your walls.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a problem. I mean, I'm not inviting you to my house, Vingan, because I'm one of those people that shoots it off Friday the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th.
So
and
he
maybe
falls
the 10th.
under, he falls under your he falls into that category of, people that, set off fireworks before and after.
Look, I like to
we
have
do.
fun.
Hey, to interrupt.
Uh-huh.
I am very happy about this because Robbie Stanley, if you're listening, I have been asking for this. According to Bob McKenzie, all signs point to defenseman Nick Perbix going to Nashville on a 2-year deal. He was my number one Predators free agent target, and I will screenshot the text to Robbie Stanley because I've been bugging him about it for weeks. So we finally have somebody.
So what would he bring?
So Nick Perbix, let me tell you all
to the
about Nick
Predators?
Perbix. And it rhyme, you might be snickering because Perbix loosely rhymes with a part of the female anatomy. Nick Perbix, think about it for a second.
Yes.
You got it? Okay.
I got it.
Nick Perbix is a 27-year-old defenseman who has spent the past 3 seasons with the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Mhm.
He was a late bloomer. He was a 6th-round pick in 2017, but he did not debut with the Tampa Bay Lightning until 2022. So in his 3 seasons in Tampa Bay, he played 69 games, 77 games, and 74 games. He's a right-handed defenseman.
Finally.
Hallelujah. If you're a Predators fan, he is a right-handed defenseman. He played a mostly third pairing role for the Lightning last season. But unlike Nick Hague, Nick Perbix 2 seasons ago was Victor Hedman's number 1 defensive partner. Victor Hedman, future Hall of Fame defenseman, number 1 defenseman for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So Nick Perbix has experience playing with a top defenseman. So I could easily see Nick Perbix playing with Roman Josi on the top pair. I'm curious what the cap hit's going to be. We'll see how much it's going to cost. I really like this signing. I think Nick Perbix fills an absolute need for the for the Nashville Predators coming from the Tampa Bay Lightning. So according to Bob McKenzie of TSN, the Predators have finally made a signing. They have signed former Tampa Bay Lightning defenseman Nick Perbix, Perbix, to a 2-year deal. The cap hit has not been disclosed as of yet. But until I see what that is, I like this signing. I really like this signing.
Now, what does this do? Because we were talking about this yesterday, and we're trying to figure out the pairing. So what does this do with Hoy? Is it Hoy?
Hague.
Because we were discussing him yesterday and where he would fall in regards to the lines.
So this is a good question. So off the top of my head, my top pairing would be Roman Josi and Nick Perbix.
Okay.
Josi on the left, Perbix on the right. Second pair would be Shea on the left. I don't know if I would put Justin Bear in there. I don't know about that. Still, see, the problem is you don't after Perbix, you still don't have great right-handed defensemen.
No.
I mean, you could still put Justin Barron on that second pair, but still, yeesh. It's a good question. I think I'm going to do this for tomorrow.
Okay.
But Nick Perbix has reportedly signed a 2-year deal. 2 years, according to Anthony DeMarco of Daily Faceoff. 2 years with a $2.75 million cap hit with the Predators. I like it. I do. I think this is a good signing by the Nashville Predators. It fills a need. He's 6'4", and he can play on a top pair because he did so with the Tampa Bay Lightning a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I like this signing. I think this was a good piece of business by the Nashville Predators. So kudos to Barry Trotz. I'll give you this one. By the way, just for proof, on Monday, June 23rd at 7:10 a.m., I texted Robbie Stanley in all caps, Nick Perbix.
So you got him.
So I'm a big fan.
It's like
I'm a big fan.
Here come.
Yes. So the Predators have reportedly signed defenseman Nick Perbix of the Tampa Bay, formerly of the Tampa Bay Lightning. He does bring that size. So Nick Hague, 6'6", 245 pounds. Nick Perbix, 6'4", 200 plus
Was
pounds.
he on their Stanley Cup winning team?
No.
Okay.
I think he would have shown up the year after. Let me double check. No, he was not on any of their Stanley Cup winning teams. And he's not a defenseman who is going to bring offense like Haig. Haig has never scored more than 5 goals in an NHL season. Perbix's career high in goals is 6, which he had this past season, had 19 points in 74 games, but he is not an offensive defenseman. His ability to disrupt opponents is what stands out in terms of getting his stick in passing lanes, disrupting plays in the neutral zone.
Isn't this a theme?
Really good.
Isn't this a theme? Because what did,
and this is not a gross overpayment, unlike what we saw yesterday with Nick Haig.
Exactly. But isn't this sort of the profile of Martin? A guy that's physical, that will mix it up on the defensive end. His offensive game will come along, and they believe it will. His ceiling is high. But for right now, the sheer competitiveness, the willingness to get in those dirty areas and fight for the puck and be physical, we sort of saying the same thing about Perbix. So don't we see a theme sort of going here from a defensive standpoint? Barry feels he got enough scores. Now he has to add those defensive players.
Yes, it'll be interesting.
In his mind,
it'll be interesting to see how the defense shakes out here. But I think you can slot Nick Perbix first pairing right-handed defenseman with Roman Josi. I think you can do that because, again, Perbix did it with Victor Hedman. So if he can do it with Hedman, he can do it with Josi, in my opinion. So I think your first pair right now on paper looks like Josi on the left, Perbix on the right. 615-737-1025. We have our first deal, as reported by Bob McKenzie and others. The Nashville Predators have signed defenseman Nick Perbix, Perbix, a 2-year deal, a cap hit of under $3 million per season for the 27-year-old Nick Perbix, formerly of the Tampa Bay Lightning. 615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on that, and we'll sort of wrap up the show in however way we decide to do it. Coming up next, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063, the game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, Stillman and Company coming up next. Jared, big timing us again. So no transition with Jared Stillman today, but you'll hear him starting at 2 o'clock.
Yeah,
so the Predators have made a signing finally. It took nearly our entire program. The Predators have reportedly signed defenseman Nick Perbix. Let me spell it for all of you as you're snickering. Perbix, Nick Perbix, a 6'4" right-handed defenseman. Emphasize that point. Right-handed defenseman. The Predators have signed Perbix to a 2-year deal, reportedly worth $2.75 million per season. Now, here are a few things I like about this signing. He's right-handed. That's number one. The Predators absolutely needed a right-handed defenseman. Number two, Perbix is 27 years old. He was among the youngest available unrestricted free agents on the market. So he still has room to grow as an NHL player. He's 27.
So he fits into, again, the sort of this criteria that you guys were talking about last week. A young guy that still has, he's shown that he can play, but still has some growing.
So, one, he's right-handed. That's good. Two, he's on the younger side. He's 27, so there's still room to grow. He was a late bloomer. Again, he was drafted in 2017, I want to say, and did not debut until 2022. Three, he has experience playing with top defensemen. 2 seasons ago, his top defensive partner in Tampa was Victor Hedman. So he has experience playing with a top defenseman. 4, this is not a gross overpayment. I actually believe that this is exactly what Nick Perbix should be worth on the free agent market. I actually pulled up, let's go to AFP Analytics. That's the website I referenced yesterday that was not too keen on the Nick Hague contract. They have Nick Perbix. Their contract projection was 2 years, $2.6 million. So he signed for 2 years, $2.75 million. So in line with what his contract projection should be versus Nick Hague, who again was grossly overpaid. So all in all, I like this signing. Nick Perbix is not going to wow you. He's not offensively inclined. He's not the perfect defenseman by any stretch of the imagination, but I am confident in this. He's the best right-handed defenseman on this team now. I think he's better than Justin Barron. I don't think I can even name the other right-handed defenseman off of the top of my head. So Perbix may be the best right-handed defenseman on this team by default. Justin Barron, Nick Blankenberg, yeah, he's clearly the best right-handed defenseman on this team. But again, not a huge competition. So the things I like about this deal, one, right-handed defenseman. Yes. First and foremost, that's important. 2, has experience playing with top defensemen. Although he was more of a third-pairing defenseman this past season, 2 seasons ago, he was Victor Hedman's top defensive partner. 3, young, still just 27 years old, turned 27 in June 15th. So a young 27. So he will be 27 throughout the NHL season. And 4, it is in line with what he should have been paid. AFP Analytics predicted a $2.6 million cap hit. He reportedly gets 2.75. So for all of those reasons, I think this is a solid signing by the Nashville Predators. Again, he does not pass the Mikael Granlund rule. Jared, I know you're listening because you just texted me. I know he does not pass the Mikael Granlund rule. So you may think he stinks. Again, he is not God's gift to right-handed defensemen. But I'm looking at other right-handed defensemen who were just signed. I believe Cody Ceci was just signed by which team? Maybe the LA Kings? Let me double check that. Cody Ceci was signed by the LA Kings to a 4-year contract with a $4.5 million cap hit. I would much rather have Perbix 2 years, 2.75 than Ceci 4 years, 4.5. Cody Ceci, by the way, is 31 years old. So I do think that this is a solid signing. Again, I'm not going to throw a parade. I am not going to set off fireworks because it's not July 4th. Also, it's raining again for some reason. I thought I didn't live in Florida. So, I mean, I guess Nick Perbix will be right at home because it's raining every day. He was used to that in Florida. So,
hey.
So overall, I like this signing. Again, it's not Steven Stamkos, the other former member of the Tampa Bay Lightning they signed in free agency a year ago today. But I like this signing. I think it makes the defense look better today than it did when we woke up.
Yeah, and that's something that they need. They need more of a defensive presence on this team. They figure, I'm sure Barry figures that last year was just an aberration as far as scoring, but that defensive part, because that's his calling card. He's a defensive type of he was a defensive type of coach, and I'm sure he's starting to, those things are starting to float around in his head as the GM, be more defensive minded because they lacked that last year.
So, your thoughts on Nick Perbix, 615-737-1025. One of my favorite follows on Twitter, Ryan, at Angry Preds fan. He's also a big Nick Perbix fan. And he said, Perbix is kind of everything a team in the Preds spot should be looking for. Cheap and short term, and gives flexibility to potentially flip at next year's deadline or re-sign and keep around for like 6 to 8 good years if it all happens to work out. I would agree with pretty much everything he said. So again, I'm not Barry Trotz is not off the hook for the Nick Hague trade and the subsequent contract because yikes. That contract, that's a bad contract, the Nick Hague contract. The Nick Perbix contract, it's a good contract. So good job, Barry. I like this one. I'm not going to vilify you for this one. So
well, we'll see how it all shakes out.
Yes, we will see how it all shakes out. But speaking of Predators defensemen, I do want to end the show on this. So Dante Fabro signed the other day a 4-year, $16.5 million contract with the Columbus Blue Jackets. So a cap hit of $4.125 million per year. Remember, first round pick of the Nashville Predators several years ago, played only 6 games for the Predators this season before being waived. And when he did play, he was barely playing. He gets picked up by the Columbus Blue Jackets. He was outstanding for the Blue Jackets. He averaged nearly 22 minutes of ice time per game, had 26 points. He was a plus 23. I'm not a huge plus minus guy, but plus 23, that's a sparkling number. So yesterday, he held his post-contract news conference and was talking about the adjustment from coming to Nashville to Columbus. And here's what he said at the end of that response that caught my attention.
Big credit to obviously the coaching staff and my teammates to help me out and really get the grasp of our systems and whatnot. And again, just learning different guys' personalities on the team is big. And I do like to chat a lot in the locker room and kind of be that not a presence, but just kind of be that guy to joke around and stuff like that in the locker room. But be serious when you need to be serious. So yeah, for the most part, it was a crazy, obviously, few days there when everything kind of had happened with Nashville and then going to Columbus. But I've told people this lots of times. It was probably the best thing that's ever happened to me.
The best thing that's ever happened to Dante Fabro is leaving Nashville. And I saw that tweet at first, and I was like, that sounds harsh. Yeah. Then I listened to it because I always like to listen to it because when you just read it,
it's clickbait.
It's devoid of context.
Yeah.
But I wonder how Predators fans feel about Dante Fabro, who seems to be thriving in Columbus, saying the best thing that ever happened to me was getting out of Nashville.
You know what? I mean, it all depends on how you see Dante Fabro. I think sometimes it is, honestly speaking, it is the best thing for the individual. Why is it good that the organization can say, well, the best thing for us was to move on from this player and do what's best for the organization? It's okay for an organization to do that, but when a player does that, especially in this situation, because I don't think he's saying anything bad about the Nashville Predators. For his career, moving forward, it was the best thing for him. We could say that about a bunch of people First name that comes to mind, Delaney Walker. It was the best thing for him to get out of San Francisco so his career can truly flourish here in Nashville. Not to say he hated San Francisco. I would assume he didn't. But the best thing for his
And as our friend Elliot Freeman always says, we can't criticize hockey players for being boring, and then when they say something interesting, criticize them for that. But look, good for Dante Fabro. Good for Dante Fabro. He found a place that utilized him in a different way. And when the Predators waived Dante Fabro, I don't remember being all bent out of shape about it. It seemed to make sense. He was being scratched a lot. And when he was playing, he wasn't playing very much. And I certainly didn't expect the glow up that he had in Columbus. But you know, he certainly would fill a need as a right-handed defenseman on a good contract. But I thought that was interesting, just because I know a lot of Predators fans look at younger players who the Predators have given up on and they're thriving in other places. By the way, if I'm not mistaken, the Pittsburgh Penguins did not give Philip Tomasino a qualifying offer. So for those of you who don't understand what that means, Philip Tomasino was a restricted free agent, of course, traded by the Predators to the Penguins. And when you're a restricted free agent, the team that owns your rights has to give you a qualifying offer to maintain those rights. You can continue to negotiate a contract, but it's basically like, we're going to keep you around so we can talk to you some more.
Yeah.
But the Penguins said, nah, and they did not qualify Philip Tomasino. So he's a unrestricted free agent.
So it's
so
like
the Penguins gave up on Philip Tomasino.
Sort of like the franchise tag.
Yeah.
We'll give you the franchise tag.
More or less.
You know, because we're trying to work out a deal with you in a sense.
Right. So for those of you who have said, you know, look what the Predators did, just giving away Philip Tomasino. Clearly the Penguins didn't want Philip Tomasino either. So like, just because a young player goes off and has a good couple games or a good half season with another team doesn't mean it's all the Predators' fault. I mean, Philip Tomasino got off to a hot start with the Penguins, but then cooled off considerably. And now he's on the market. So, you know, good for Dante Fabro. Glad that he's happy in Columbus. I'm sure the Predators, you know, in hindsight, wish they would have maybe handled that differently. Maybe they could have gotten an asset for Dante Fabro instead of just giving him away. But I did find those comments interesting. But it's been a quiet free agency day for the Nashville Predators, much different than it was a year ago when the Predators spent all of the money on Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, and Brady Shea. So far, the only reported signing for the Nashville Predators, Nick Perbix, right-handed defenseman from the Tampa Bay Lightning, signs a 2-year deal, reported $2.75 million cap hit. I really like this move for them. I think he fills a lot of needs. I was about to say the thing I'm not allowed to say on the show, but he fills a lot of needs. I could see him playing on the top pair with Roman Josi. We'll see what happens over the course of the day. Jared Stillman will take it from here. He will update you on all things NHL free agency. If the Predators make any more moves, Jared will bring them to you. But again, that'll do it for us today. I hope everybody had a wonderful time with us, although it was a sleepy free agency day today, Derek. We did make the most of it. We will be back tomorrow at 11 o'clock.
Be blessed. Love on your people. Hug them. Keep them close. Have a blessed and wonderful day. Peace.